Hello there, Michelle Short here, and welcome to my favourite things, A Very Crafty Holiday. Today I'm sharing cards using the Dino-mite Christmas set, as well as sharing some tips and tricks for mass producing. So let's get started. I'm going to start off by stamping the absolutely adorable dinosaurs from the Dino-mite Christmas stamp set, and I'm going to stamp those down onto some smooth white cardstock. I'm creating 4 cards today, but if you wanted to create more, you could either stamp out the extra dinosaur that's in the set that I'm not stamping down, or you could stamp these multiple times. And that's really great thing about having a stamp positioner like this, is that you can stamp them multiple times. So I'm stamping those with extreme black ink, and then I'm going to colour them with Copic markers. So my first tip is to find a colouring medium that you really like. I do really like colouring with Copic markers. I find that it's probably the speediest of the colouring mediums for me personally. I do really love colouring with colour pencils and also watercolours and things like that, but this is the quickest. And if I'm mass producing cards, for me personally, I do like to have them done fairly quickly. I know that that sounds a bit wrong, like you're trying to get through them as quickly as possible, but in general, I'm not a big fan of mass producing. I don't mind when other people do it, I would never think otherwise, but for me, I tend to get a little bit bored with mass producing, and so I try generally to kind of like pick a design that I really like, and then maybe mass produce that 5 times, and then pick another design that I like and then mass produce that 5 times. That way it stays a little bit more exciting for me, I suppose. I know some people really love just mass producing the same design multiple times, like 30 different times or something like that, or even hundreds actually, but it's just not for me personally. So do find something that you enjoy. So if you're not that keen on mass producing, I don't generally do it throughout the year, but at Christmas time I do, purely because I've just got so many cards to send out that I just don't have the time generally to come up with loads of different ideas. But like I say, I do it on a much smaller scale, so I tend to pick one design and make that maybe 5 or 10 times at the most, and then pick a different design. And I also like to vary my designs slightly, so as we go on to the cards, that you'll see that they all do vary slightly with a different sentiment, a little different dinosaur, but the layout is going to be the same, and that's helpful, I find, with mass producing. I also find that I kind of want to limit my colour palette a little bit when colouring. Again, I just find it easier if I'm not grabbing loads of different colours of markers to be able to colour in the images. Definitely find some images that you particularly are going to enjoy colouring. So things like penguins and snowmen and stuff like that have a very limited colour palette, and they are a little bit quicker to colour, but I did really enjoy colouring in these dinosaurs. I just think they're absolutely adorable. So originally I was thinking that I'd probably just stick to 3 colours, the green for the dinosaur, the red for the accents like the little hat and the scarf here, and then also a blue for the present. But as time went on, I did find that the dinosaur at the bottom there has quite a few different presents, and although I could have coloured them kind of like the same colours, I thought that I would add in a few more. So I added in a yellow and also an aqua colour, and so that did kind of increase my colour palette, but it still wasn't like a major different colour palette, if that makes sense. But definitely do what you find best for you. I quite like colouring in smaller images, but a lot of people do prefer colouring in larger images. You've kind of got a little bit more room to add shading and things like that. I'm not too focused on where the light source is or anything like that. I'm literally just colouring because I enjoy colouring these cute images. So for the Christmas tree here, I did add in a different colour of green. I wanted to make sure that you could see the difference between the Christmas tree green and the green that I used on the dinosaurs. So that's G28 and G43, and then here I'm bringing in that aqua colour that I said, and I also use this aqua colour for the bits on the back of the dinosaurs. I have no idea what that's called. I do apologise, I probably should have googled it or something, but for the first one here with all these presents, I did colour it green and wished that I'd actually coloured it a different colour. So for the other ones that I coloured off screen, I did add in that aqua colour instead, and then just added a few highlights with the yellows for the lights and then also for the lights on the trees. So next I'm going to cut out all of the images using the Dino-mite Christmas Die-namics set. So just placing them on top, adding some low tack tape to keep them in place, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine, and that's going to cut out all of these absolutely adorable dinosaurs that I'm going to use on my cards. Ordinarily with images like this, I would probably do an ink blended background, but if I'm going to mass produce cards, I really don't want to be spending a lot of time adding in ink blending and things like that. You definitely could, but like I said, for me with mass producing, I'm probably want to try and get them done fairly quickly. So I'm going to pick some patterned paper. This is the Holly Jolly 6x6 paper pad, and I picked two that I thought looked like sky with snow falling down. To maximise the paper to its best ability, I'm taking the A2 Stitch Circle Stacks dies, and I had to cut one of them slightly off so that it didn't quite fit on the pattern paper, but I'm going to cover that up, so that was absolutely fine, and the extra little bits of pattern paper I can use for extra cards. I've also cut two circles with the same die, and I'm going to use those as snowbanks. So I'm taking the Stitch Slimline Snowdrift Die-namics, and I'm going to cut a snowbank into that circle. And that's going to cover up where I couldn't cut a full circle of the patterned paper. So that's just going to go at the bottom of the sky piece, and then that's going to give me something for the dinosaur to stand on as well. And to maximise this piece of cardstock, I'm going to cut two snowbanks from each piece, one on either side. So I'm not wasting any cardstock here, which is the benefit of doing mass producing. And I've also cut another one of those off screen, so I've got 4 snowbanks in total, and I'm just going to lay them all out here so that I know kind of which orientation I want that patterned paper to be. Some of them have got more snow than others just because of where I had to cut the circle on the patterned paper, but that's absolutely fine. And then I'm going to grab my dinosaurs here and then add them on top so that I can see where I think I want them to be placed. I like to do this with, especially with mass producing, and this is kind of like my thought process when card making in general. I haven't prepped in advance for this video. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. So that was kind of like my process of how I think the cards are going to come together. I want to add some sentiments onto the card. Although the sentiments in the stamp set are really fun, I like things like Have a Dino-mite Christmas, I wanted some smaller sentiments to fit the kind of design of my cards. So I'm taking the Itty Bitty Holiday stamp set, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiments that say Happy Holidays, Let It Snow and Merry Christmas. I originally thought that maybe I would stamp 4 different ones from the set, but I thought that I wanted 2 that had Merry Christmas on them. So I'm prepping my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool and getting rid of the excess powder, and then I can stamp the sentiments with Versamark ink. This is a clear sticky ink so that the embossing powder that I add is going to stick to it. And because I know that I need an extra Merry Christmas, I'm just going to move the cardstock along so that I can stamp them all again. This not only is going to give me all of the sentiments that I need, it's going to give me 2 extra as well. And I love having extra sentiments kind of ready to go for sort of quickness to make other cards as well. So I can just stamp those down, and then I can add some white embossing powder on top, and that's going to stick to that Versamark ink. I like to apply the embossing powder a few times, tap off the excess so that I get a really nice coverage of that embossing powder, and then if I've got any stray bits where I don't want it, I can use a dry brush just to remove those. And then I can heat set this panel from the front and the back, and I'm trying not to let my heat tool be on these sentiments for too long. I did get a little bit of overheating, and I'm going to correct that a little bit later. And then I've got the Itty Bitty Strips Die-namics dies here, and then I can cut out all of my sentiments with those. And the great thing is I need 4 sentiments, and the set comes with 4 different dies, which is really handy. So I've just placed them over with some low tack tape and run those through my die cutting machine. And the sentiment strips are a little bit longer than I need them to be, so I'm going to cut those down with a guillotine. just so that they are a slightly smaller size than what they are now, and kind of fit the sentiment a little bit better. And I've just realised that I need to clean my mini guillotine because it's covered in embossing powder. Next, I have prepped 4 A2 sized white card bases, and that's another tip, is to do things assembly style. So what I did was I stamped out all of my images first, and then I coloured them all in one go. I die cut them all in one go. I then die cut all of the background pieces in one go, all of the snowbanks in one go, then prepped all of the card bases, and now, well, I did the sentiments in between, and now I'm just placing them all down where I want them to go. And for me personally, I find that quite helpful when mass producing. You then could do all of the adhering in assembly style as well, and I often do that, but because I'm going to have all of these cards just slightly different, I found that it was a good way for me just to place everything down where I wanted them to go and then adhere each card separately. So I've added some on-point precision glue onto the back of the snowbank, added that onto the background piece, and then with some tape runner added that onto my card base. Next, I'm taking some foam tape, cutting that down into small pieces and adding that onto the back of the dinosaurs and also the sentiments as well. I do apologise for this portion of the video, the sun kind of came in and out. That is British weather for you, unfortunately, or at least English weather. So I apologise for that, but you pretty much can still see what I'm doing, but I did just want to mention it. So I'm just working out here where I want my dinosaur to be placed. I thought that I would have the sentiment kind of underneath his head, but in the end I decided to add it at the top. So just placing that down, and then I can place the sentiment there at the top. So that's the first one done, and then I can move on to the second one. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I have sped this up quite a bit because it is the same thing sort of all along, but the cards are slightly different, so I did want to keep it in the video. I just wish that I could manage to adhere cards this quickly in real life. I think these dinosaurs are something a little bit different for Christmas and holiday cards. I just think they're absolutely adorable. And I thought this one would look quite cute with the present, because this one in some ways isn't hugely holiday-ish, apart from the lights being around the dinosaur, although he does have a little cute Christmas hat on as well, so I thought he would look quite cute with that present as well. And then I can bring in my T-square ruler just to help me out with the placement of the sentiment. And this one here, like I said, this one at the bottom especially had that kind of notch cut out of it, but you would never know because you're adding that snowbank over the top. This little dinosaur here, I didn't think he was generally sort of like a Christmas type dinosaur. I thought he was more sort of a winter dinosaur, so I thought he would look quite good with the Let It Snow sentiment. Just removing that backing off of the foam tape, using that T-square ruler just to help me out there with the placement, and then I can move on to the last one here. How do you feel about mass producing? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Like I said, I'm not that big on mass producing in general, but I do find it really helpful during the Christmas and holiday period. So please do let me know if you're happy to share. So I think this card here, this last one, might be my favourite out of all of them. I think this dinosaur has just got like a kind of look of wonderment on his face. I just think he's so cute. So I can just finish off this last card. And then because I think that I overheated that embossing powder a little bit, I'm just going to use a white gel pen just to fill in any of those areas. And then I can add a little bit of sparkle onto the cards with some iridescent bubbles. I'm keeping these cards very simple indeed, but I did just want to add that extra little bit of sparkle. So I'm just adding 3 around all of the sentiments, and I think that those kind of embellishments just add a little bit extra to the cards and kind of bring that sentiment into the image. So this is all of the 4 cards that I made today. I think they turned out so cute with those tiny little dinosaurs, and that pattern paper works really well for the background, I think. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.